and welcome to another reading vlog. So it's currently the 12th of July, it's a Monday and it's the official start of my holiday. I will be home for 3 weeks, not having to work, really happy with that. And it is going to be a staycation, so we do have some day trips planned, but we're not going to go away for a couple of days on end, so it's going to be pretty chill with a lot of time to read, hopefully, or at least that's what I'm expecting. And I am going to start this vlog today because today I am going to start Dune. So fear is the mind killer, probably the most well-known quote in sci-fi world. And this is really classical fantasy. I've heard that it's quite dense, so I was a little bit afraid to pick this one up, but I'm quite happy that I'm doing a buddy read for this one together with Lauren over at the Paperback Empire. And then some people who watch Lauren and my channel have decided to jump on this buddy read as well and talk about it on my Discord. So I'm quite happy with that we have some emotional support if necessary. But this is the second book that I'm picking up for the Expanding My Horizon series, where in this case I try sci-fi. So I try 5 books and see if sci-fi is the genre for me. The first book that I picked up was Red Rising, which is very modern. This is completely different, so let's see if I also like classical sci-fi. I wanted to say fantasy right there, but it's sci-fi for sure. So I will try to read a little bit today and then give you an update on how I think the beginning is. I hope that it's not too dense to get through, because especially if you don't talk English as a first language, sometimes that can be quite difficult if it's really old, archaic English almost. So fingers crossed that it's not too difficult to get through. Hi, so me again, of course. By now I've read a little bit of Dune, but I'm really liking it. However, I haven't read enough to give you my organized thoughts. I'm going to read a little bit more and then do that in a second, hopefully. But now I'm first going to organize some of my new bookshelves. So a bookshelf tour is coming soon, where I will show you these shelves and then also my old shelves where I have most of my books. But for now I'm going to try to organize the lower half of those shelves, so only the bottom shelf. And I have all of these. I think these are UK paperbacks, so they are all here. You can see a little bit of them, and I am going to try to fit all of them on the bottom shelf. We're going to see if I succeed. You're going to get a little bit of a time lapse, and then in the next video probably you will see my entire bookshelf tour. Hi again. So we're a couple of days later and I just finished the first 120 pages of Dune, so I thought that it would be a good plan to give you my first thoughts on the first 120 pages, and I must say that I'm really liking it. I can see why some people would say it's very slow to get into, but I normally never really mind, because what most people see as slow, I see as character development, as world building and stuff like that, and there was definitely a lot in these first 120 pages. You could say that there is quite some info dumping in the beginning, because we are following our main character Paul, and he and his family, which is one of the ruling families, are going to live in another planet. So all of his teachers, his mother, his father, they explain to him how this other planet is like, how is the political climate there, how is the ecosystem. You have a native population that lives there as well. How are they like? How can we use them to our advantage? So you get all of this information, which can feel quite infodumping, and it's difficult to understand sometimes and to remember, but it's quite realistic in the story that Paul would receive this information. So I didn't mind, and I found that to be quite interesting in general. I loved how this world is built up. The ruling families are definitely quite harsh, and they reminded me a little bit of the goals of Red Rising. And I do like that as well. So how their minds work, I like that. You also have one other ruling family, and these two are quite enemies. So you also get a little bit of a sneak peek how they are like and who the players are in that family as well. So I liked it that you not only get to know Paul, and he's a very interesting main character, because he's only 15 years old, but he's very mature for his age. And you have some snippets that he's going to be very important later on. But you also get to know his mother and his father, who are also two interesting characters. His mother is some kind of witch, you could say, and she comes forward of a very long line of these special women. And yeah, you have a lot of foreboding that Paul is going to be pretty important, because even though you have some more boring chapters, I would say, a little bit tedious. You have one chapter, for instance, that I just finished, where you get a lot of information of the equipment that they have, that they are going to use to mine this new planet. But that was very difficult to understand. It's very technical. You don't understand all of these terms because, of course, these are not machines that we have on Earth. So that was a little bit boring, I would say. And there you have some pacing issues. But because you have all of this foreboding what's going to happen, and that's going to be pretty epic, you don't mind if you have 1 or 2 chapters in there that are a little bit slower. So for now, I'm actually very hopeful that I am going to like this book quite a lot. I must say that Lauren has given me a link where you can have a summary of all of the chapters, and I am using that now so I don't forget any of the important stuff. That's quite helpful. So I will put the link of that website down below so that you can use it if you want to read Dune as well. But now I'm going to try to read a little bit more. My godchild is coming over and he's going to sleep over here. So once he's here, I won't have any time to read, but it's a little bit over an hour of time that I still have left. So I'm going to try to get to the 200-page mark, and hopefully I will still like this book as much as I do now. So another quick update. It's a couple of days later now, and in terms of my general reading plans, I'm doing horribly. This is always what happens when I have a vacation planned. I think that I will have loads of time and I will have a lot of time to read, so I plan a lot, but in reality I have a lot of other plans as well. So at this point I haven't been home for a single day since my vacation. Of course, that's very fun. I've had a lot of fun up until this point, but that does mean that I'm reading a little bit slow. But for Dune, I have finally reached the point where we are beyond the premise of the story, and that has taken quite a lot. I think that we're almost, by the time that the premise happened, I don't have the book with me, but we were 200 pages in, so I can definitely see why a lot of people think that the beginning is very slow. It is slow. You know what's going to happen and it doesn't start, so it feels like the story isn't really taking off. But I like that, because you know what's going to happen, so you don't really have to pay a lot of attention to the story, but you can pay a lot of attention to the character development, to the relationship that they have with each other, and I like to see that. But now, of course, everything is open, everything can happen, and I really like that tension. As far as the writing style goes, I love this. I don't know if some of you can recommend something to me that's similar to this, to how Frank Herbert writes, because I quite enjoy it. I also like that he chooses to have chapters with different POVs, which remind me a little bit to A Song of Ice and Fire from George R.R. Martin, where you also have different POVs from factions that are actually scheming against each other. Because here you have, of course, the POV of Paul, but you also have the POV of his main antagonist, which is the Baron. So you know what he is planning to do and what he is scheming. And I completely agree that some people say that that takes away a lot of the tension. But on the other hand, I don't really feel that way, because you also don't know how Paul is going to react and vice versa. So you know all of their plans, but you don't know what's going to happen in the end. So that's something that I love. But what I also really like with the writing style, or in terms of the writing style, is that even in one POV, so let's say that we are with Paul and with a couple of people who are there as well, and something is occurring, you have a certain scene that's happening, then you have a very seamless transgression from Paul to his mother, for instance, or his father, or somebody else who is looking at the thing that's happening from a different point of view. And I really like how Frank Herbert does that in just one chapter. So yeah, in terms of writing style, I really enjoy this, and I also like Paul as a main character. He's probably one of the most interesting main characters that I have read at this point, and I'm not even halfway into the story. So that's very promising, and I do hope that I will continue to like the book, but at this point I do think that I will continue with the series, so read at least the second and the third book. Hi everyone, so I just finished Dune and I loved it so much that I want to give you my final thoughts. But before I do so, I just wanted to ask, do you like this setup? Because I am currently standing in front of my new bookshelves, these small ones, and I wanted to know if you want me to switch between this setup and the one that I normally have, so the one where I sit in front of my big shelves. It's definitely a little bit weird to stand while I'm filming, because normally I'm always sitting, but I would like to switch around if you guys like this setup and like to have a little bit of variety. But if you like me sitting down in front of the big shelves more, then I'm happy to do that as well. So please let me know in the comments down below. But now, so finished Dune and I really enjoyed that ending. The last 100 pages were amazing. I was so scared for some of my favorite characters, not just the main character, but some side characters as well. I didn't know what was going to happen. There were definitely some twists that I didn't really see coming. I liked it. Now, I'm not good at predicting stuff in general, so maybe some other people would have predicted it, but up until the final couple of pages, I didn't know what was going to happen. And it was a pretty important ending here, so I really like that when I'm completely off guard and I have no idea what's happening and I'm so invested in the story that I just keep reading because I want to know more. That's how these last 100 pages were. Now, in terms of how this sci-fi book aged, I must say that I was very glad that some other people decided to join me for this buddy read together with Lauren, because on my Discord, some people said what they didn't like, people who didn't like the book as much as me, and I can definitely see some of the comments that they made. For instance, the Baron, the big antagonist here, he was given a certain trait by Frank Herbert to really show this is a bad guy. Now, in general, I don't really mind that, but I think that the trait that he was given was something that wouldn't have been used at this day and age. So there you can definitely see that this is a little bit of an older book. Even though I don't mind that, I must say that it wasn't really developed that well. If you're going to mention that this is some despicable thing that he does, I like to go deeper into that, but that would make it maybe a little bit too dark for what the rest of the book is. Still, I can definitely see that that's a negative and that that's a part where you can see that this book is a little bit older. Something else was something freakishly happening with a fetus in this book, and maybe it's my biomedical scientist degree that speaks a little bit here, but that's just something that can't happen. And of course, it's a sci-fi, so a lot of things can't happen, but just strictly biologically speaking, it wasn't really making a lot of sense. Now, I can let that go, but then how this was implemented further along when the baby was actually born, stuff like that, I didn't like that, and I would have liked to see the execution there differently. And I actually have a way in my mind that I would have liked a lot better, because now it was just a little bit freakish, and I think that that tone was very different from the rest of the story, which threw me off. And I didn't have that big of a problem with it, because I just liked the writing style, I liked the main character, I liked the overall plot. So then, if there are negatives, I can skim through that, but I can definitely see that that is a negative of the book, and that if you're not enjoying it that much, if you think that it's slow, that's maybe the thing that pushes you over to say, yeah, this isn't the best book ever. However, like I said, I definitely enjoyed this one. I like the writing style, I like the choices of the different POVs, even though that might take away a little bit of the tension. And even though this is not my favorite sci-fi that I have picked up until this point, because I did like Golden Sun by Pierce Brown more, I definitely like what this has done, where you have the different themes that are very important, that go very deep. What are humans? And if you go further, how will we evolve? If we choose a specific trait and we want to specialize in that, what does that mean? And what does it mean to be a human or an animal? Stuff like that, I really liked that and how this was explored in this book. So I will definitely continue and read at least the original trilogy and then see how it goes further along after that. But yeah, this was definitely a win for me, so I'm very happy that I picked it up and that I've read it before the movie, because that trailer, I'm very excited for the movie. So please let me know if you have read Dune and what you thought of it, and if you're excited for the movie. As always, I hope that you enjoyed the video, and see you next time. Bye!